There's a version of you making decisions right now, and it's not you, not the you that's watching this, thinking these thoughts, feeling vaguely unsettled by that sentence. There's something else operating underneath, something older, something that doesn't care about your goals, your relationships, your carefully constructed sense of who you are. And the terrifying part? It's been running the show the entire time. You just didn't know it. But this is where it gets disturbing. Because if your subconscious is doing almost all the work, almost all the perceiving, almost all the deciding, then what exactly is your conscious mind for? Researchers at the Max Planck Institute discovered something that reframed this entirely. They scanned people's brains while participants made simple decisions, like pressing a button with their left or right hand. And they found that the brain had already made the decision, measurably, neurologically, up to 10 seconds before the person consciously chose. 10 seconds. You felt like you chose. You didn't. The choice was already made, and your consciousness arrived late, like a journalist covering a war that ended before they landed, and almost nobody talks about this part. Because if that's true for simple decisions, what about the big ones? What about who you fell in love with, what career you chose, what you're afraid of, what you secretly believe about yourself? What if those weren't choices at all? What if they were sentences written in a language you can't read, handed to you by a part of your mind that operates completely outside your awareness, and you simply acted them out, believing the whole time it was your idea? That's not a metaphor. That's closer to the literal truth of how you function. Let's go deeper, because this is where it gets genuinely strange. Your subconscious doesn't experience time the way you do. It doesn't distinguish clearly between past and present. When something frightening happened to you at 7 years old, your subconscious didn't file it under resolved, historical, no longer relevant. It filed it under reality, and it's been referencing that file ever since, treating a moment from decades ago as ongoing, live, current information. This is why people repeat patterns they hate. This is why someone can intellectually understand. They're safe, they're loved, they're enough, and still feel, at the bone level, that they're not. Their subconscious isn't operating on what's true. It's operating on what it learned. And it learned everything before you were old enough to question any of it. But then something strange happened in modern psychology. Researchers started looking not just at what the subconscious stores, but at how aggressively it shapes what we perceive. Not just how we interpret reality, how we literally see it. There's a phenomenon called perceptual filtering. Your brain receives roughly 11 million sensory signals every second, and it can only consciously process about 40 of them. So who decides which 40 you see? Your subconscious. It's curating reality for you right now in real time based on what it already believes. If your subconscious believes people can't be trusted, it will literally highlight evidence of betrayal and blur evidence of kindness. Not metaphorically. Neurologically, your subconscious is editing the film of your life and handing you a version with certain scenes cut, certain colors brightened, certain voices amplified, and it never shows you the footage it removed. This changes everything, because it means you have never experienced reality directly, not once. Every perception you've ever had was pre-processed, filtered, shaped by a system you didn't design and can't fully access. You've been living inside a simulation, and the machine running it is you, or rather, the part of you that came before you, the part assembled in early childhood by fear and love and accident and imitation, by every adult who shaped you before you could choose to be shaped. And here's the part that creates a very specific kind of dread. This system is not neutral. It has an agenda. And its agenda isn't your happiness. It's your survival. These are profoundly different things. Your subconscious was built by evolution and early experience to keep you alive and to keep you familiar. Familiar, not happy. Not fulfilled, not free, familiar. This is why self-sabotage exists, why people destroy good things, why someone on the edge of real change, real growth, real love, suddenly pulls back, picks a fight, disappears, convinces themselves it won't work. Their subconscious isn't malfunctioning, it's working perfectly. Unfamiliarity registers as danger, and it will manufacture crisis to return you to what it knows, even if what it knows is painful. Because pain, if it's familiar, feels safer than an unknown joy. Let that land for a second. Your subconscious would rather keep you in a familiar hell than risk an unfamiliar heaven. And now we arrive at the place where this stops being about neuroscience and starts being about something much harder to sit with. We live in a world that has never been more designed to exploit this gap. Every algorithm, every notification, every carefully engineered piece of digital content is built not for your conscious mind, but for your subconscious. For the part that responds to threat, to social rejection, to tribal belonging, to desire, to fear, the conscious you, the thoughtful, reflective you, is largely bypassed. Tech companies don't need to convince you of anything. They just need to trigger the right subconscious patterns, and your behavior follows automatically, and your conscious mind invents a reason afterward, and you believe the reason, because the alternative is too destabilizing. The alternative is realizing you're not the driver. But this is where it gets complicated, because there's a third layer here, and almost no one reaches it. Some people, through years of therapy, meditation, genuine suffering, genuine curiosity, start to develop something unusual, a kind of meta-awareness. Not just awareness, but awareness of the process of awareness. They begin to catch the subconscious in the act. They notice the filter as it's being applied. They see the old story activating, the old fear rising, the old pattern beginning its familiar choreography, and for a fraction of a second, they create a gap. Not a total override. Not perfect freedom. Just a gap. A small flickering space between stimulus and response. And in that gap, something different becomes possible. Viktor Frankl called that gap the last human freedom. He said it could not be taken from you, even in the worst conditions imaginable. He knew, because the worst conditions imaginable had been taken from him, and he survived not by conquering his subconscious, but by learning to inhabit that gap, that tiny breath of space where you're not yet the old pattern, not yet the old fear, not yet the person your subconscious decided you were before you had any say in the matter. But here's what haunts me about all of this. Most people never find that gap, not because they're weak, not because they're broken, but because the entire architecture of modern life is designed to close it. Constant stimulation, constant noise, constant reactivity. Every tool in the modern world profits most when your subconscious is in control and your conscious mind is too overwhelmed to intervene. The gap is inconvenient. The gap is where you might choose differently, where you might stop, consume less, need less, want differently. The gap is the one place the system can't reach you, which means protecting the gap, learning to find it, learning to stand in it even for a moment, isn't just a psychological practice. It's something closer to resistance. And now, here's the question I can't stop thinking about. The one that doesn't resolve cleanly. If most of what you feel, most of what you decide, most of what you perceive is being shaped by a system inside you that formed before you were conscious enough to consent to it, and if that system is now being exploited by external forces with extraordinary precision, then what, exactly, is left? What part of you is genuinely, irreducibly yours?
Maybe the gap. Just the gap. That terrifying, fleeting, barely there moment between what the subconscious commands and what you actually do. That razor-thin space where you could theoretically choose otherwise. Maybe that's where you actually live.
Maybe that's where you always have. And maybe the entire project of being human, the whole aching, confusing, beautiful, exhausting project of it, is just the ongoing work of finding that gap, widening it slightly, and choosing for one more second not to be entirely what you were made to be. The question is whether you're doing that now, or whether something else decided to watch this video, and you just arrived after the fact, believing it was your idea.